Next I knew, I'd woken back into myself. I stood in the dark space, an attic space, standing room just. I couldn't recognize yet where I was. A common occurrence of transformation, especially if I were away for long, and it would seem to be the case. Away. Myself, and yet not myself. Not unlike having been on a vacation. So hungry I'd been to forget the trappings and moorings of humanity, to be among the natural world, almost as a living phenomena. To fly, to soar above it all. I'm in Harry's castle. Must be still. Every time I had eaten the blue cheese as planned, their names came to mind. Otherwise, I would forget them and just know my love for them. Love as the animal kind can, connected and dependent, and far less recognizant of any differences in our molecular boundaries. Nature defies boundaries. Balkus. I could sense he was in the house. Could almost hear him calling. I'd been comforted all this time to live in the same animal ether as he was. But now, for now, I'd woken. I was wearing what I wore comfortingly when I last transformed, kept safe in the other place somehow like a secret cloakroom. I'd woken, so to speak, and yet ravenous for sleep. I thought first. Thought I should first see why I had decided to come back to my human form. Perhaps the others would help me determine this. There must be a door somewhere, a ladder down surely in this attic. Surely I hadn't come in a window. I stripped a small window of a curtain. It let in some late afternoon light. I searched the room for a ladder. Something. A trap? Damn. So I had come in a window. Strange. I searched and found it by some stray whistling wind, barely large enough of an opening for me to squeeze through in my crow form. What was in my feathered head? Well, surely Harry will eventually hear me if I bang on the floorboards. He'll know. What call, what I was answering by being here, and up here of all places. Good goddess, I'm tired. The low-ceilinged attic was in remarkably good condition. Aerated just enough by that tiny opening, not unpleasant even. The roofing here was antiquated and thinly insulated, which explained our need for constant fire building. There wasn't much but a few thatched chairs, and in the corner, a long rectangular box, like for deliveries. Large enough for a person. I nudged its lid. It moved appreciatively. For a moment, I shivered that a vampire would appear from within. Hush, Leona. You're a vampire. Yes, yes. Whatever that means anymore. I slid the lid further so that I could peer inside. Oh, lovely. Perfectly shredded thin cardboard. A fantastic choice. It beckoned me in, but I stopped myself. I went with great discipline to sit on one of the chairs. I stared out at the little window which I'd torn the curtain off of. A filament dangled from the sturdy curtain rod and gently swayed from the imperceptible fresh air outside. It was yellow, and just then a ray of light gave it a shine that flung me backwards in time. The warmth and melancholy nurturance of the fountain flooded my heart. I paused for a moment to think on the gratitude I'd felt. How seeing Balkus relieved from pain had lifted years of distressed thoughts coiled at the base of my neck, predatory and unavoidable. Had I considered the origin of the fountain? Truly. As I was playing with my braids, I beckoned loose the ribbon that I'd found near in the jungle that first day. It was still soft, even if its colors had faded. A decidedly female, a maternal presence. But no vampire could create something like this. Not by themselves, surely.
We must have rats in the attic, but I can't quite understand how to get up there. Oh well, better there than down here. Balkus keeps caterwauling at them. I had to bring him down and lock the door. That seemed to irritate him. Incidentally, haven't seen Leona in a while. Hopefully she's just on one of her longer flights. Simon was just about to leave since I had told him we don't know when we'll see Netto again. I have to be patient. But then he reconsidered.
Does time ever feel like it slows to you?
How do you mean?
No, just... I took a trip to the village. Felt like I'd been gone a couple hours, but by the time I got back, it wasn't... it was maybe an hour and a few.
Fairly typical for a new immortal, but I see you mean otherwise.
Haven't you felt something since Netto and Dracunin and all that?
Yes, maybe. I hadn't thought of it in terms of time, but perhaps. Have you felt it anywhere else?
No, but I did go down to the ring. You're right. Could it...
Possibly. Magic is a mystery, Sometimes I feel I was robbed of it. I'm jealous of the rest of you.
Well, I'm thankful your magic is in your ability to survive, Harry. I don't know what I would have done if I'd been, responsible for killing you.
Yes, well, we're all past that. Let's not rehash things.
Harry had been unusually down these past few days. I thought of giving him some space and going to Inverness and clearing my head a little. But after the ring and all that, I worried that I'd be gone and miss seeing Netto come back, or I don't know. Miss being useful for some reason. I miss Brea. Known them all of, I don't know, a couple months. And I couldn't bear to think of not seeing them again. Not that they left on bad terms or anything, just hard to say I'd felt like this for anyone before. It's not love, it's not lust. More than a friend, well, perhaps that's where I'd been deluding myself. I didn't think about not having friends growing up. I thought everyone in the society was my friend, more than my friend, but what a laugh. Above it all, was I? Were we all? Or was that just me as Grandpa's special boy? Now I think of the kids at uni. Will I ever see them again? I didn't know. They were all that was keeping me in school, if I was honest, and him. Who knows? Brea changed all that. Someone, I guess, to see the world in the same way with, is that it? Someone to not feel all alone? Not that Harry and Netto haven't been, but... God, they're old. They're so old. I see that now. Not in the way one would necessarily expect, but everything they do is so serious. Huh. That's good. I'm changing. Not long ago, I was the one who took things so serious. Not that Netto being gone isn't serious. I started to climb up to the castle, and then curiously reconsidered, like I was being beckoned backwards by a mysterious force. The voices. The voices had not returned. I must find the voices. They were lost. I could remember some things. They painted themselves behind the clouds on the heavens, like a movie rushing by.
I never know when I'll resume my form, I haven't seen my toes in so long, it feels.
But it was what I couldn't remember that frightened me. Harry would be all right, Simon and Brea too. Leona, Balkus would take care of them, now or later. In fact, they would be better off waiting for my return, not knowing that I was back. I reached into my pocket. Cash. I had enough to take the bus and the train and more. My passport lay in my inside pocket. There was something comforting being on the bus. Its uniform and boring nature as the dark crept and little could be seen outside. The juxtaposition of what I had experienced and this reality, the real one, made me shiver. I quelled the desire to be a little sick, performatively, as if to purge the experience or to mark my arrival back in this corporal form. Not yet. Plenty of time for that. I could feel myself unsteady without the voices. Good. I mean, it was good I wasn't with Harry and the others. The shame would rush towards me like a bull in a china shop. Sleep. You must. Whatever shame weighs, like an additional gravity, like on a foreign planet. That is what it was like back then, in the forest of my youth. The weight. And now with the weight dissipating, the joy threatened. The joy threatened me all, and an absolute absolution.
I woke in a sweat. Balkus was caterwauling again. Finally, I went to see, realizing what he was telling me. The attic. I could perceive there had been a trap door. I found a stepladder, broke a piece of wood that splintered my hand. But there, beneath, indeed, an opening. I parted it and threw the wood down, nearly smashing Balkus accidentally, was prowling impatiently beneath me. I lifted myself up and into the desolate attic. Somehow Balkus had lifted himself onto the ladder and came pouncing past me over to a large box, lit by a sliver of daylight. He sat on a little desk, looking at me proudly, perhaps a little defiantly, as if to call me stupid for not understanding what he had been getting at. Leona, awake and asleep, naturally. Wow. I left the stepladder so Balkus could come and go as he pleased to visit her. I brought up some blue cheese wrapped multiple times in wax paper, a jug of water with a stopper in case she woke suddenly. I never liked sleeping in a box. Somehow the life on a ship wasn't as claustrophobic as all that. I didn't mind the swaying. It promised of some timely or untimely release. There is some ancient magic there. Some vampires are attracted to it. Perhaps it is superstition, who knows? It worked for Leona, and she was no worse for it. How long had he slept? I had a mug of coffee black, then reconsidered and put some sugar in. Why had Leona chosen to wake up now? Perhaps what Simon had said, the shift from the portal. What had it shifted in me? Uncertain, and yet I'd been thrust inside it momentarily. As much as I regretted what I did to Rakunin, it had exorcised some things. Felt like I'd been a fool all along, pretending I was beyond my past, how near it could be, how simple it was to regress. A good reminder, a humbling reminder how I could lose it all. For a moment I thought of Agatha, and the fresh pain.
Harry, it's me. Hold on. I've been here all along. I'm so sorry.
As fresh as when we first were together, back in the attic apartment.
Say my name.
Stabbing at my heart like her knitting needle. I felt I was there once more. Desperate for her to put me out of my misery or to love me as I suspected she did, with the lunacy that was. Simon wasn't around. Probably went to the fairy ring. My knuckles were still bruised. One on my knuckle seemed to encircle it, reminding of the sigil. A line. Rakunin's pride wouldn't let him near me anytime soon. And Brea, gone away for reasons outside my own. Surely I could believe Simon, but they perhaps had been spurred by the sight of my violence. And then there was Leona, separating from us, or rather more from Balkus. Time. What had Simon said exactly? Did we have more of it or less? What did the proximity to the portal really do? I took Balkus on my shoulder and we got some fresh air. The air was crisp and still. What time of year was it? Was it November? Didn't feel it. Balkus dismounted, but uncharacteristically walked all the way to Black Sheep's Hill with me. He approached a few stray sheep who were curious about him. They startled, and he startled a little. Then we stared at each other, enjoying the momentary stillness of time, moment, and space.
Somehow it felt like it took very little time to arrive at the train station not far from Dracula's castle. I recognized the same old woman, the same inn. I did not have cash to stay there, or at least probably not. I went inside and the innkeeper, a very young man with a thin mustache and a strange tattoo of a hawk or something on the side of his face, greeted me stoically in what I feared for a moment was the old language. He paused and then asked me in English. I ordered the soup of the day, some bread, and a blood sausage. Different for me because I seldom ate meat. It tasted familiar. Even generations later, it tasted somehow of the forest of my youth. My aunt's cooking was rare, or at least I could mostly remember Agatha and I taking care of our feeding. We ate, I could hardly remember, grain of some kind, root vegetables. We had meat on occasion, very gamey. I did not like it as much as Agatha, I remember. I was thin, out of lack, sure, but food had little interest to me. Agatha would remind me to eat. I her on occasion. It took me hundreds of years to remind myself to eat regularly. I still have issues with it. Vampires have a rare ability to just survive, but that is not living, and it frays at consciousness, makes one less of this earth. The food, it grounds. I had a brief glimpse in my mind's eye of the man my aunt left with. How did I remember so far back? His energy was dark, but I suppose a lot of people's energy was dark in those days. Other people were to be managed and overcome. The idea of a person to trust was far from me and my sister's mind. I'm not sure I ever began to trust until... Harry? Could it have been? I suppose I trusted myself enough to have lovers. I trusted myself enough to socialize, to engage, so as to sell my heart. I had a nervous laugh. My looks made it easier. That was perhaps a part of it, a shortcut. No one suspected me of much, except perhaps to steal their wife away. Was I nervous to be here, so close to the forest of my youth, closer still to the castle? I felt sorrow at reliving the moment of killing Gree. The events had been terrifying, sure, but the portal had swallowed a certain part of me, a part that dreaded death, that feared dismemberment. I only knew that I would be on this path sooner or later, and I had had enough delay. Easy to say as an immortal, and yet it had taken me this long. Again, alone, without the others. Surely Agatha would do it differently. Yes, we'll call it reconnaissance. I would not scale the castle this time. There was a temporary gate. There was a man who looked like he worked security. I paused a league away and watched his movements. Eventually he talked into a walkie-talkie and then made his way into the brush. I simply walked in. In the courtyard was some yellow security tape on several passageways. I lounged to the front entrance, but saw that it was also supervised by security, who just barely avoided seeing me as he turned. I lounged further by the wall. I came upon a door. The time in Lucy's arms came back to me. Was there a way in? I thought of Chang, his way of dematerializing through doors and walls. What evil? The other security guard was coming up the walk. I had little time to hide myself. And so... The man helped an old, infirm one, myself, speaking gibberishy version of my old tongue as I limped back down the road. I took my time, noting the guard's badge, which didn't give me much information, but I did have a moment to look at the front entrance. There was a window, small, but perhaps... The man took a picture of me with his phone before letting me go. He spoke to me bizarrely in English with a Slavic accent, possibly Russian, or else he would have spoken in Romanian to me. They were definitely out-of-towners. I could not tell if they were part of the RUS or something like that. I made my way into a patch of woods, changed back into my more comfortable youthful glamour, and wound back to where the inn and the train station lay. I sat in the dusk by the train tracks. I had a little bit more money to eat if I wanted. I could just barely see the tip of the antenna at the castle, I realized. Who had been handling the technology? I lay down to sleep. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All dark. All prima materia. Deep below this earth, that was why they chose to build it here. The roots. I could see caverns. You must hurry. You must hurry. Passageways. A man falling. No, many men. A trap. He's awake. You must hurry. You must hurry. I awoke. I walked down and away from the train station. There was a small tourist center, closed. I scanned a pamphlet. A spring, an underground waterfall. Not open during this time of year, it would seem. It was only a half-hour away. I made my way on the outside of the castle gate and noticed the same guard who'd noticed me. I waved, stupidly, or who knows. Still, no voices. They weren't even close to being near me. I felt rudderless without them. And yet, I had enough in me to keep going, blind as it were. I was in rapture walking through the forest in almost pitch black. A kind of normalcy of being flooded back into me. A kind of forgetting of what I was even trying to do, which was beyond me, and yet I was in bliss at being here and not being here, noticing the ground beneath me, the shapes of the woods, and then the sight of a few deer in the distance. Their eyes shone like obsidian. I let the shadows shape my movement. I took my time until I could hear the faint semblance of water, or the echo of the hollowed source. A gate lay before the entrance, tall, and there was a small gap on the side. I pulled at the gate with all my strength. The image of a man, Clive, that was his name. Then a wolf, then a blue-dressed woman in the frame. I bent the gate miraculously. What was this magic called? I suppose a sudden inspiration, blessed by my time. Away. I tore my coat and shirt as I just barely made my way through the gap. I entered into the darkness so as to avoid the possibility of there being someone coming. A railing guided my steps downward as my eyes adjusted to the pitch of blackness. I stopped before a long slab or rock. Here, I could hear their screams. They had fallen. I kept moving downward. I stood before the falls. Christ. I thought of the shark. I knew where I had to go.